Hello and welcome to the Caravan Show, a series which, if you've already got one, will give you help, advice and inspiration. And if you haven't, we'll try and dispel the myth that caravans are merely mobile roadblocks, designed to torture unruly teenagers on rain-soaked holidays in Wales. Meet Tim Mitchison and Rob Norton. Tim's an enterprising chap with an eye for nostalgia. Rob is a self-confessed engineering nut. Between them, they've scoured the country's garages, barns and scrapyards for rusting wrecks to transform into classic automotive art. But now the boys have got a hankering for something bigger, much bigger.
Well, I got the Caravan almost by accident. I've a little Austin Somerset soft-top tourer, and I rang up the historic Caravan Club and I wanted a very small, compact 50s Caravan to tow. And in the conversation they mentioned this Berkley two-storey Statesman, and I was intrigued by it. I went to a car rally that following weekend and found an original advert from 1951 with a colour photo of one of these on it, and I just thought it was so ugly it had to be mine.
Designed by Berkley Cars, the Statesman cost over £1,000 when it was first launched in 1951. Some of the 99 vans built even found their way into the United States Air Force, where they were used as married quarters.
Right, well, we've got the Caravan.
Yeah, and we now have a sketch plan of roughly how it's going to come together. If we build a chassis and then screw and bolt a wooden platform to it, then we can assemble the walls in sections onto the frame. So we've got a good sturdy box.
The van was originally designed to sleep 7. There were 2 fixed single beds, a fixed double, plus a cot. There were also 2 fold-out armchairs that converted into beds. However, the feature that makes it so unusual is the upstairs bedroom. The interior was fitted with hand-built furniture, finished in oak. It's going to be one heck of a challenge recreating all of this, and we'll be seeing just what the guys have taken on later in the programme.
We know what it should look like, but it's just a case of scouring the junkyards and old caravan sites.
Last time we saw Tim and Rob, they were trying to envisage a finished product, but they're a long, long way off.
And the wet's got into all the millboard in the ceiling, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's
a complete surprise me if the roof timbers were pretty bad as well. Which is what's bringing all this down. The joints have all gone, haven't they?
Yeah, it's burst, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's just like somebody dropped a bomb inside it and it's all gone outwards.
Well, the Caravan's a fairly basic structure. It's got a hardwood frame, which originally would have been covered inside and out with hardboard. At some point it's been reskinned in aluminium, which is why it survived. And other than that, the floor is tongue and groove, just the same as you would have in a normal house. It's an angle iron framework and chassis underneath it, very simple in construction, made as light as possible, but still over 2 tons imperial. This is a major restoration, from ground up, quite literally. We're going to have to build a new chassis and replace the floor completely. Then we're going to have to build basically new frameworks for the sides, but we're hoping to be able to save the roof and pick out interior details. The intention being, of course, to keep as much of the original there as possible. But so much of the original is woodworm eaten and rotten that certainly the entire framework will need replacing.
Yeah, I think as an exercise in pure English eccentricity and
insanity
and exercising your skills and setting yourself a challenge, it really is worthwhile.
Oh,
it's
yes.
It's going to be no mean feat to restore it, because everything you touch just creaks and groans and crumbles,
but it will be absolutely unique.
Yeah, I see no reason why it shouldn't hit the road again, or at least the majority of it anyway, the bits that we don't sweep up. And if I can get out of here without killing myself, we'll make a start.
Right. Down we go.
The restoration of the last remaining Berkley Statesman poses a real challenge for its new owner, Tim Mitchison.
This is a frightening restoration. I've never done anything like this before. We went down to look at it in Bedfordshire and I thought, what am I doing? what am I doing here? And I came away thinking I wouldn't do it. And then I decided I have to have it. She arrived on the back of a lorry and I thought, we're going to have a go.
The big problem with this vehicle is the amount of weathering and corrosion. Every kind of rot you can have, whether it be the wood or the metal or the alloy, it's all here. Underneath this metal cover is the main towing hitch, and as you can see, the angle iron that it was made from looks like something taken out of a Roman dig. Another major problem we've got is this hitch. It's a completely obsolete type, and once we'd managed to get it off, we discovered that pretty much all of it's rusted solid, and the inside of the hitch is not only an imperial one, but it's extremely rusted, which means you could jump off the back of a car without any warning at all. The wheels on this appear to be some sort of heavy-duty trailer wheel. They look like the type that were fitted to horse boxes. They've got 3 studs here to take a fancy chrome hubcap, which tells me they're not Land Rover wheels, although the tyres are, which is convenient. The tyres themselves, obviously, are going to be in no fit state to be put back on the road, because they're all cracked around the walls, which is a shame, really, because they are actually new. There's no wear on them at all.
Before the chaps can even start work, Tim has had to build a covered area to protect the new Caravan as it's being built. It's going to be a long job requiring patience and a lot of carpentry. Tim has called in an old friend who just happens to be an expert joiner. Joe is no stranger to major builds, and his first task is to remove the whole of the end section and build a replacement frame, which will form the basis for the new end wall. In a job like this, you need to use every trick in the book to try and save time.
Well, what we've done with this, me and my mate, we've pre-drilled it and countersunk it, so when it comes to screwing it up, and it's all marked out, and then it's easier to fix together. It saves a lot of work and a lot of, you know, I mean, we've done the work, but it saves a lot, it goes together a lot easier. Hopefully.
But, as we'll find out in a couple of minutes, there's a problem. Now, when we left Joe, he was about to fit the frame for the first end wall, but unfortunately, all his hard work has been in vain, and he's had to start again, from scratch.
We've had a few problems, a bit of a false start, because the first lot of hardwood we ordered was cut to the wrong size. There's a discrepancy in one dimension of about 2–2.5 mil. It doesn't sound like a great deal, but because of the way the Caravan's constructed, with an aluminium skin on the exterior and a hardboard skin on the interior, we're not going to be able to keep the skin, both skins, in tension.
Although it may look flimsy, the frame is just one of a number of components that go to make up the end wall, insulation being another.
The original insulation to the Caravan was sunfoil, and it's basically a piece of brown paper with a very thin layer of cooking foil on either side to reflect the heat.
One of the concessions Tim is making in this restoration is to update the insulation material. This new stuff has far better thermal properties, which is handy because Tim intends to use the van all year round. The material will be held in behind marine ply, which will then be skinned in aluminium.
Here we go, take it steady. This is it, this is the big test.
Now, if this doesn't fit, Joe will have to build it again, for a third time.
Is it gonna fit?
If this was me doing it, that's exactly what would happen. But thankfully, Joe is a professional.
Yeah, that's spot on.
It is, isn't it?
It is, that looks spot on.
Yep.
And in this programme, we continue to follow the fortunes of Tim and Rob as they undertake an ambitious restoration of a unique piece of caravanning history. Tim Mitchison and Rob Norton have enlisted some extra help in their ambitious restoration of the last remaining Berkley Statesman. This double-decker 1950s classic is in an appalling condition, and as for the chassis, well, it seems to have lost the will to live. Undeterred, the team have bolted together a new one using galvanised sections of steel. Well, pretty straightforward, you might think. All they need to do now is lay a wooden floor on top of it, and Bob's your uncle. but life is never quite as simple as you want it to be.
The problem we've got at the moment is the fact that the concrete that this is stood on is far from level. So the chassis is just following the contour. It's snaking and dipping and generally getting all over the place. And what they're having to do here is shore it up and pack it so that it's level as best they can, so that they can ensure the wooden platform is true in all three planes.
The trouble is that the steelwork for the chassis is so flimsy, and the way it's constructed is so flexible that we can lose, you know, we can have a mill out at one end and be 3 inch out at the other. And we can't seem to find where it's out. I suspect that it's the rear subframe, the rear half of the steelwork that's out. But we've got to get that true before we put the timber on. Once the timber's on, it's fixed. However true it is, it's fixed for good. So we're committed.
Well, I'm 90 more or less, up to the middle.
Ah, we're wanting to bend it the other way then, aren't we? I thought...
So,
yeah.
All we've got to do is hope that we can force the whole thing across towards the wall, and once the timber is in place and glued and screwed down, it's not going to try and spring back. And certainly when we get the axle in place, that's going to add a bit more strength to it. The more we add to it, providing we keep it straight, it will stay straight. And, well, that's a theory.
We find something substantial to get it hooked up.
Something substantial.
Yeah.
Put it around your fear of it going wrong.
And we'll be finding out how the guys are getting on in a few minutes. So, have Tim and the guys managed to wrestle the troublesome chassis back into shape?
Right, just hold it a second. What you got there, Kev?
We've got 2 140 there. Yeah, 100 mil, bang on.
I've had sleepless nights about this.
At last, Joe and Kev, the 2 joiners, can get on with the floor. They're using pre-treated Tongan groove boarding, but unlike the sort of floor you or I might put down in a kitchen, this one has got to be watertight. Tim plans to use his Caravan all year round and enjoy